The cold hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the hull, a constant reminder of how far humanity had fallen. Captain Aurora Vallon stood at the helm of the Hercules, the last of Earth's warships, staring at the dim expanse of space beyond. The stars had become silent witnesses to the final act in a war that had consumed humanity and its enemies alike. Her fingers brushed over the controls, but her mind was elsewhere, fixated on the transmission that had just gone out to the stars. "You'll regret this war." The words were simple but heavy, reverberating across the cosmos like the ringing of a death bell. Earth was dying, and humanity's last stand was not a victory but an act of defiance. The transmission, sent from the wreckage of their planet, had been meant to echo their resolve to the galaxy, an unyielding last message. And with it, they would fade into obscurity. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Captain Vallon, we're receiving a response from the Xerian fleet," reported Lieutenant Juno Draven, her voice steady but tense. "It's not what we expected." Vallon turned sharply, her sharp blue eyes locking with the young officer's nervous gaze. "What do you mean, Lieutenant?" Draven's fingers flew over the console, the hum of her station echoing in the otherwise silent bridge. "It's a live feed. A direct communication from Fleet Commander Varnak." Vallon's stomach twisted. The Xerians had never cared for diplomacy. Every encounter had been a bloody battle for survival, and every time, they had underestimated humanity's will to fight. She braced herself. "Patch it through." The screen flickered to life, and the looming, angular face of Varnak appeared. His eyes, black and emotionless, locked with hers. "Captain Vallon," he said in his rasping voice, "I see your species has finally abandoned all hope." Her pulse quickened. His words were as cold as the vast void they now occupied. Varnak had been the face of the Xerian Empire's unrelenting crusade to wipe out humanity. The message he brought was simple: surrender or be annihilated. "I'm afraid we do not share your view, Commander," Vallon said, her voice steady despite the fury bubbling inside her. "Your victory will cost you more than you can imagine. Humanity is not done yet." Varnak's lips curled into a cruel smile. "You misunderstand, Captain. We have already won." His gaze drifted, almost dismissively, to the black void behind him. "Your planet is a husk, your fleets scattered, your people reduced to a handful of survivors, clinging to their last breath." Vallon clenched her fists. Every part of her being wanted to lash out, to scream her rage at him. But she kept her voice low, calculated. "You may have destroyed our home, Varnak, but you will never destroy what makes us human. The fire that drives us will burn long after you're gone." Varnak's eyes narrowed. "We've crushed your spirit, Captain. You are broken, and yet you still cling to some illusion of victory." "How quaint." Vallon stepped forward, her gaze unyielding. "You think we're finished? That we've lost everything? You've miscalculated." She allowed herself a grim smile. "This war will be remembered. The galaxy will know what you did. And that is your regret." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in a tense silence. Vallon remained where she stood, her chest tight. She could feel the weight of the years of struggle pressing down on her, but her resolve was unshakable. "We need to act now," she muttered, more to herself than to the crew. "The Xerians may think they've won, but they haven't seen the last of us." Lieutenant Draven looked up, her face pale. "Captain, if they are this confident, they've likely begun their final assault. The Leviathan, Varnak's flagship, will be here in hours. We won't have time to evacuate." Vallon nodded, her mind working quickly. Every moment mattered. The Hercules was the last vestige of humanity's once proud fleet, and she couldn't afford to let it go without a fight. Prepare the crew for a last-ditch offensive. We'll make our stand where we can. And if we're going down, we'll go down fighting. We'll hit the Leviathan, make them regret underestimating us. Sergeant Anka Reyes, standing at the rear of the bridge, stepped forward. "You're not suggesting a suicide mission, are you, Captain?" Her tone was skeptical, but there was an edge of respect behind it. Vallon met her gaze. "We have no other choice. If we can damage the Leviathan, even just a little, it will slow the Xerians down. It will buy time for the survivors. But more than that, it will send a message. Reyes studied her for a long moment, then gave a sharp nod. Then let's make them regret it. Captain Valen turned back to the view screen, the vastness of space stretching out before her. The Xerian fleet was coming. But so was the last, defiant act of humanity. You'll regret this war, she thought again, a promise as much to herself as to the enemy. And in the quiet of the cold, dying universe, the battle for Earth's legacy was about to begin. The Hercules drifted through the black, its hull scarred and patched but still carrying humanity's hope in its veins. The dim lights of the bridge flickered, casting sharp shadows on the worn faces of its crew. Outside, the vast emptiness stretched endlessly, indifferent to the battle that was about to unfold. Captain Aurora Valen stood at the front of the command deck, her fingers gripped tightly around the armrests of her chair. Her gaze was fixed on the distant stars. In the quiet hum of the ship, her mind raced, running through every possible outcome of the coming assault. Every risk had been calculated, every move planned. Still, there were too many unknowns. "You're sure we can disable the Leviathan's weapons, Lieutenant?" she asked, turning to Lieutenant Draven, who was busy at the console. The young officer's face was tense, fingers flying across the touchpad. "Their weapon systems are formidable, but it's possible," Draven replied, not looking up. "If we can breach their shield network, I can plant a virus in their core. It'll cause their cannons to misfire or shut down completely. But it'll take time, and we'll have to get close." She paused. "Too close." Valen's lips pressed into a thin line. "I've always believed we could do the impossible. But this will be something else." Draven's voice softened. "Captain, the Leviathan is equipped with enough firepower to vaporize us before we even get a shot off. I know the risk, hell, we're all facing it, but it's our only shot." Valen turned toward the viewport again. In the distance, the Xerian fleet was slowly advancing, the menacing silhouette of the Leviathan leading the charge. It loomed large, a monstrous black ship that radiated an aura of impending destruction. The ship's powerful engines were capable of wiping out an entire fleet in seconds, and Earth had no fleet left to defend it. "We don't have time for doubt," Valen muttered. She turned to the communications officer. "Signal the crew. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Let's see if they can keep up." A soft beep echoed through the command center, signaling the comms officer's confirmation. Valen exhaled sharply, eyes narrowing. "Bring us in, Lieutenant." Full speed. The Hercules surged forward, a lone wolf darting toward the Xerian fleet. The crew fell into a practiced rhythm, each person focused, every movement deliberate. The stakes were higher than they had ever been. Meanwhile, Sergeant Anka Reyes, standing at the rear of the bridge, observed the tension in Valen's eyes. The captain was always composed, always the rock, but even Reyes could see the cracks starting to show. This wasn't just a mission to her, it was personal. "You okay, Captain?" Reyes asked, her voice low, not wanting to disturb the silence of concentration in the room. Valen didn't turn around. "I'm fine, Sergeant. I'm just thinking about the people we've already lost. Our planet, our homes. I won't let that be for nothing." Reyes stepped forward, her eyes hardening. "We won't. We'll make them regret every damn decision they've made. But we need to stay focused. We can't let the anger cloud our judgment." Valen glanced back at her. The raw emotion in her eyes softened, just a fraction. "I know. But anger is all we have left. It's the only thing keeping me moving." The Hercules entered the edge of the Xerian fleet's detection range. The space around them seemed to darken, the stars dimming as the Leviathan's massive form blocked out light. The crew braced, their nerves electric. "Captain," Draven called out, her voice tight. "The shields are at full strength. I'm seeing multiple energy signatures, they know we're here." "I don't expect anything less," Valen said with a steely calm. "Engage evasive protocols. Sergeant Reyes, you and the boarding party are on standby." Get ready to move out when I give the signal. Reyes nodded, her jaw set. Understood. Full evasive. Valen commanded. The ship shuddered as the engines flared to life, darting left to avoid a barrage of enemy fire. Explosions lit up the dark void as Zirian plasma blasts sailed just past them, missing by mere inches. The crew moved with precision, the battle unfolding on the screens around them. But Valen's mind was elsewhere. She thought of Earth, of the lives that had been lost to this war. She thought of her father, a civilian engineer who had died when the Zirians' first attack hit their city. She thought of her mother, gone before she could say goodbye. Every face, every lost soul spurred her forward. Shields holding steady, Draven reported. We're close enough to breach their defenses. I can upload the virus now, but it'll only take effect once we're inside their defensive grid. Valen nodded, her voice hardening. Do it. The Hercules dove deeper into the heart of the Zirian fleet, dodging fire at every turn. The massive black hull of the Leviathan loomed closer, like a predator preparing to strike. Then, without warning, a blast hit the port side, shaking the entire ship. The lights flickered, and alarms blared. Damage report. Valen barked. We've lost power to the aft thrusters. Shields at 70%. Draven's voice was frantic. We're not going to make it at this rate. Valen's eyes burned with intensity. We don't have a choice. She glanced at Reyes. Prepare for boarding. We're going in. The time for doubt was gone. With a fierce roar of the ship's engines, the Hercules accelerated, diving straight into the heart of the storm, heading straight for the Leviathan. The Hercules shuddered violently as another Zirian blast struck her port side. Sparks cascaded down the walls, and the bridge lights flickered as the ship careened through the debris field, narrowly avoiding another plasma shot. Valen's hands were steady on the controls, but her mind was racing. We've lost our outer plating, Draven reported, her voice tight, fingers flying across the console. The Leviathan is targeting our engines. If we don't move faster, we're done for. Valen didn't flinch. She had seen worse in her years as a commander, but this was personal. She thought of Earth, of the people who hadn't made it off the planet. Of her parents, who had died in the early days of the invasion. She'd never get them back, but she could make sure that the Zirians regretted every moment of this war. Can you get a shot through their shields, Draven? Valen asked, her voice calm but with an edge of urgency. Draven's fingers paused on the console, her brow furrowing. It's risky, but I might be able to overload their systems. If we can get close enough, I can inject a virus into their shield grid. That's a big if, Reyes said, her voice carrying from the rear of the bridge. I'm all for a plan that ends in a bang, but we need to think about the crew, Captain. Valen locked eyes with the sergeant. Reyes, ever the pragmatist, had been questioning the mission from the start, but there was no room for second-guessing now. We're past the point of no return. This is our chance. Reyes didn't argue. Instead, she gave a quick nod, her expression steely. Understood. Brace for impact. Draven shouted, just as the Hercules was rocked by another direct hit. The ship veered to the right, throwing the crew to one side as alarms blared and the hull groaned under the pressure. Valen's eyes were sharp, tracking the enemy ship's movements on the tactical display. The Leviathan was massive, its sleek design a symbol of the Zirian Empire's military might. Its engines were pulsing with violent energy, as though it were a predator coiling for the kill. We can't keep dodging forever, Valen muttered under her breath. She turned to Reyes. Get the boarding party ready. We're going to breach the Leviathan. Reyes stiffened. You're sure about this, Captain? Boarding a ship that size. This is our only chance, Valen interrupted. We go in, we disrupt their systems, and we make sure they feel every minute of it. No retreat. The decision was made. There was no going back. Comms, signal the crew, Valen ordered. Prepare for close-quarter combat. We'll be making contact within minutes. The crew moved quickly, their faces grim but resolute. Draven's hands flew over the console, coordinating with the rest of the Hercules team as they fired back at the Xerians, trying to create an opening. The ship veered and weaved, darting toward the Leviathan's flank, where its shield was weaker. Every second counted. "You're close," Draven said, her voice taut with concentration. "Another 2 clicks and I'll upload the virus." The tension was palpable. On the bridge, every heartbeat seemed to resonate in time with the ship's shuddering movements. Suddenly, the Leviathan released another devastating barrage, hitting the Hercules directly on the starboard side. The explosion sent a shockwave through the ship, and for a brief moment, everything went dark. Valen's stomach lurched as the ship rocked. "Status," she barked. "We've lost power to the starboard thrusters." Draven's voice cut through the chaos. "We're drifting. Can you fix it, Lieutenant?" Valen demanded, every muscle in her body tense. "I'm on it." Just a minute," Draven's words were drowned out by the sound of another impact. A violent tremor rippled through the ship, and the comms officer's frantic voice broke through the static. "Captain! We've lost communication with the outer hull. The boarding party is prepped, but we're losing time." Valen's jaw tightened. She didn't have a minute. She had less than that. "Prepare the party anyway. We're not waiting for the engines to stabilize." Reyes, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. "I'll lead the boarding team myself," she said. "We're not backing down." Valen gave her a sharp nod. "Do it. Once we're in range, you'll have 30 seconds to breach before we're sitting ducks." The tension was unbearable. The ship was hurtling toward the Leviathan, the Xerian warship looming like an enormous dark cloud, waiting to swallow them whole. "Virus is in," Draven said, her voice strained. "Shield grid is starting to fail, but we're almost there. Another 30 seconds. Valen felt the ship lurch beneath her again, this time with more force than before. This is it, they were committed, charging headfirst into the belly of the beast. "Get ready," Valen said, voice low. "Once we breach, there's no turning back." Reyes gave a sharp nod, her eyes hardening. She had always known this would end in blood. The Hercules shot forward, slamming directly into the Leviathan's weakening shields. The impact was so violent, it felt as if the entire ship would tear apart. For a moment, everything went black again. And then, everything exploded into action. The sound of heavy breathing filled the breach. Smoke and sparks swirled through the confined space, choking the air, but it didn't matter. Sergeant Anka Reyes stood at the head of her team, the metallic tang of blood on her tongue, her hand steady on the hilt of her weapon. Her breath was slow but deliberate. They had made it into the Leviathan's belly, now came the hard part. "Stay sharp," she ordered, her voice low but commanding. "We're in the lion's den now." The team nodded in silence. The thick hum of the ship's systems was barely audible over the screams of the wounded. Reyes' eyes flicked to the ceiling, scanning for any sign of movement. They were deep in the bowels of the enemy warship, but the Leviathan was far from defeated. The ship groaned as if alive, its walls vibrating with the force of distant impacts. The Hercules was holding its ground outside, but this fight was on their terms now. "Blow the door," Reyes ordered, and one of the technicians set to work, planting explosives to breach the access point leading further into the ship's core. The explosion was deafening. The door collapsed inward with a metallic scream, revealing the next chamber, a vast, dimly lit expanse that pulsed with Xerian energy. The team swept forward, moving as one, boots pounding on the cold metal floor, their weapons raised. The air was thick, charged with static, and the faint sound of Xerian voices echoed through the halls. "We've got company," one of the team members muttered, eyes narrowing as shadows shifted at the far end of the room. Reyes held up a hand, signaling for silence. They were too close now. They had to be smart. "Move in," she whispered. As they advanced, a series of Xerian soldiers leapt from their hiding spots, weapons raised. The exchange of gunfire was swift, brutal. Reyes fired with precision, her weapon kicking in her hands, each shot taking down a foe. Her team followed suit, cutting down their attackers with the cold efficiency of a well-oiled machine. But as the last Xerian soldier fell, the true challenge emerged. A massive figure stepped from the shadows. Its silhouette towered, nearly twice the height of a man, its skin an obsidian black armor that shimmered with unnatural energy. It was the Xerian elite, one of their warlords, and it was more than just a soldier. It was a beast forged for battle. "Fall back!" Reyes shouted, but it was too late. The warlord's blade, crackling with violent energy, slashed through the air, missing her by a hair. She dove to the side, rolling behind cover, but the attack had shattered the ground where she had stood. Her heart thundered, her pulse racing. This wasn't a fight they could win with firepower alone. They'd have to outsmart it. "Hold tight!" Reyes shouted as the warlord charged again, its footsteps shaking the floor beneath them. Her team scattered, ducking and weaving, but the warlord was relentless. A blast of energy from the creature's arm sent one of the soldiers flying backward, crashing into the wall. The sound of bones snapping filled the air. "No!" Reyes roared. Her team was dwindling, and this monster was far too powerful. She watched as the warlord advanced on her fallen soldier, a twisted grin spreading across its face. Her mind raced, there had to be a way to take this thing down. In that moment, everything slowed. She could hear her breathing, each inhale and exhale, sharp against the chaos around her. It was instinct now, and her instincts had never failed her before. She ran at the warlord, her weapon discarded, focused only on the target. A heartbeat before the warlord's blade could strike, Reyes launched herself at the creature, using her momentum to disarm it in one fluid motion. The warlord roared in frustration, but Reyes was faster. Her hands, slick with sweat and blood, seized the alien's arm and twisted it violently. There was a sickening snap as the warlord's arm gave way. With the creature stunned, Reyes grabbed a jagged piece of debris from the floor and shoved it into the warlord's side, driving it deep into the creature's armored flesh. The warlord screeched, its voice like a dying animal's cry. But Reyes didn't stop. She pressed the makeshift weapon deeper, her face grim, her arms burning with exertion. Finally, the beast collapsed. The room was silent, save for the sound of Reyes' ragged breathing and the distant hum of the ship's failing systems. "Sergeant!" A faint voice called from the team. Reyes turned to see the remaining soldiers staggering toward her. She looked down at the warlord's body, its towering form now a lifeless heap of blackened armor, and then back at her team. It wasn't over. The fight was far from finished. But they had won this battle. "Is anyone still able to move?" Reyes asked, her voice tight. "We're all still standing," one of the soldiers said, though he was clearly shaken, a gash on his arm bleeding freely. "Good," Reyes nodded, her gaze shifting to the door ahead. "The warlord's down, but the real fight is in the command center. We've got to finish what we started." They moved forward again, more cautiously now. The corridor seemed even darker than before, the walls pulsing with an ominous red glow as the ship's systems began to shut down. The Leviathan was faltering, but it wouldn't go down without a fight. Neither would they. As Reyes and the last of her team approached the final doorway, she looked back at the men and women behind her. "We finish this, or we don't leave here." One by one, they nodded. The weight of what lay ahead hung in the air, but the look in their eyes was the same. Determination. And just as the door slid open, the Hercules' voice crackled over the comms. "We're ready, Sergeant. Whenever you are." Reyes took a deep breath. They had already come this far. This war was ending now. And humanity's last stand would not be in vain.